participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such information is voluntary. Citizens participating in person wishing to speak should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand in Zoom or submit a public speaker card, and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Great, thank you. Deanna, will you please conduct the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Arnrich?
Here.
Commissioner Bernal?
Here.
Commissioner Gee?
Here.
G. Commissioner Xavier?
Here.
And Acting Chair Nowak.
Here. All right,
And
the
we
first
have-
item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone of the public here? Any comment online?
We do not have any written or remote public comment. Thank you.
Great. I will close public comment, and we'll move on to the consent calendar. Are there any changes or comments from the committee on the consent? Anybody want to pull an item? No? Is there any public comment on the consent item? No? Any remote public comment on the consent calendar?
We do not have any public nor remote comment.
All right, great. Can I get a motion?
I'd move the item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can you please call the roll call vote?
Commissioner Arnrich?
Aye.
Commissioner Bernal?
Aye.
Commissioner Gee?
Aye.
Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Acting Chair Nowak.
Yes.
Motion passes with majority.
We're now moving to the regular agenda items. First item will be introduced by Lindy to provide an update on legislative on both state and federal levels.
Good morning. Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Mark Watts, who is joining us by Zoom this morning to provide our state legislative update, followed by our federal legislative update. I'll let Mark go first, and then I'd be happy to introduce Brooke.
Hi, Lindy. Thank you, and thank you, Chair and members. I'm going to make sure you can hear me. If you can't, let me know, but I think everything's working well today. I do thank you for allowing me to appear via virtual because of the pressing order of business up here this month. I intend to be back in person in the coming months, so thank you very much. I also just like to mention that I just want to recognize the firestorm tragedies that took place in Southern California, and we're still trying to figure out if there are impacts in the local streets and roads funding area, or do they need help restoring some of the roadway systems. So that is out there. It's not anything that's being done in the near term, but it's something we expect to happen in the coming months. From a legislative perspective, I would like to just remind you that we've been underway in this new session for 25-26 since December, and I continue to monitor bill introductions. Oddly, this year, I think the combination of the large amount of new membership in both houses, as well as the limitation of 35 bills per person per member, has throttled back the amount of introductions. I do continue to monitor day by day the introductions, and so far I have a targeted list of 37 for Lindy, your staff, and I to go over before we get into the heavier month of March when bills get set for hearing. Typically, as a reminder, a bill has to be in print for 30 days. before it can be amended or heard by committee. So we're saying bills that are coming in late in the last month won't be eligible till late February and early March. So that'll be the strong month coming up for us to be deeply involved. Legislative leadership impacts on transportation. Pro Tem McGuire did announce chairs, and he did retain Senator Dave Cortese as the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, and likewise, Speaker Rivas has retained Assembly Member Lori Wilson, who has a portion of her district within Contra Costa County as the chair of Assembly Transportation Committee. Turning a page over to the State Transportation Commission, February is typically the month at which they make changes in their leadership. And Carl Gardino had been the chair of the commission and has been replaced now by vote of his commissioners with Darnell Grigsby, who had been the vice chair, and Jay Bradshaw is now the new vice chair of the commission. So he's the NorCal Carpenters representative, and he'll be in line to be the next chairperson coming forward. I've met with all the leadership staff to gain an update or kind of insight into the state of play for legislation to extend the present cap and trade
Recording in progress.
market-based auction process. It is confirmed there is a working group in the Senate. There's a modified working group in the Assembly trying to put together a program that they can bring forward to the legislature in the coming months, probably in line with the budget process, so that they're in sync with what the governor needs to do for cap and trade. As a reminder, cap and trade, the extension that was enacted back in 2017-18 was authorized through 2030. So 2030 is the date or the year at which cap and trade auction, if not extended, would go away. So there's a lot of interest in this session to try to get it done rather than waiting up to the deadline. The state budget overall for transportation overall for the state, it was released back in January, and that budget was very much a status quo budget. Due to the hard work that they did in the prior 2 years, the legislature has left the governor and the new legislative session with a pretty nearly balanced budget on a very stable footing, with a very modest, less than $500 million surplus. We look forward to seeing how these estimates bear out as we get closer to the May revise and see if that all works out as well as it appears to be. For transportation, there were no major changes. The funding that had been appropriated and committed and restored when it was started to be taken away for mass transit from the general fund has been recommitted, and that approximates $14 billion to fund the transit and intercity rail program and formulaic as well as competitive grant program. So that's good news. There's been no apparent need to see the need to claw back any of that money to help balance the budget. It's been balanced without those funds. I will say, if you have major projects, and I haven't checked this out, I will do this for Lindy and for your executive director. The SHOP program is coming under fire yet again. EJ Community and others are looking at trying to peel back $400 million out of the SHOP as it gets ready to be adopted, and use that money instead of for state freeway and local conventional highway system needs for repair and restoration. They're seeking to dedicate $400 million of that money into active transportation programs. With that, I think I just would indicate, received a note this morning from Lindy. Some folks on staff are interested in some of the bills that have been introduced. I would happy to report that the bills that they were keying in on are in the list that we're monitoring, and Lindy and I and perhaps staff will be working as we get closer to the end of February on trying to prioritize which bills we would support, oppose, or recommend other changes. So that completes my report for today, and I stand ready for any questions.
Any questions of Mark? Yep, Noel?
Yeah, good morning, Mark. Thank you for being here, and I hope you feel better soon. I was at a meeting on transportation with Cal Cities about a week and a half ago. Caltrans showed up and did an update on their multiple pilot programs for vehicle miles traveled, licensing fees related to electric vehicles and things like that. Is there actually anything you're seeing, anybody, any of the legislators talking about that this year? Because they didn't indicate it, and the concern is that it's going to favor Caltrans. Because
So
they're
a
going to
commentary, I think you're referring to the road user charge
Yeah.
concept in
Yeah,
general.
they have 3 programs they're running to see which one they're going to recommend.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Just a little bit of background. I just retired from Transportation California, which had been one of the key sponsors for SB1. But in addition to that, I helped sponsor 3 bills over since 2014 on behalf of Transportation California that looked at the road user charge. The first one was a bill by Mr. Senator, then Senator DeSaulnier, now Representative DeSaulnier, that established a TAC within Caltrans, Technical Advisory Committee, that would look at the road user charge. There's a feeling across the country that at some point in time in the future, a road user charge may need to be seriously considered as a replacement for what will be a radically or rapidly diminishing revenue stream from the fuel tax that's in place now. And I think really the more diligent entities like Caltrans and frankly my last organization, they're not saying that road user charge has to be the answer. They're saying that's one answer. And as a result, they have had a series of pilot programs looking at how that would work, not just how it would be received by the motorist, but looking at how it would be operationally understood and work. One key note I would make here is that the gas tax, the fuel tax, is collected from something like 25 to 28 different fuel producers in the state or fuel processors in the state. And so it consequently is a very, very inexpensive tax to collect. When you get beyond that into other areas like registration fees or maybe even this road user charge, it becomes incrementally more expensive. So you're spending money that would otherwise be available for roadway improvements and restoration instead on collecting the funds. So there's a lot of work to be done. I do know that the group I just departed from has engaged an internationally well-known firm to look at not just road user charge, but others. So I think this is getting a very, very honest and hard look at what does the state of California and perhaps the nation do to replace the fuel tax as the revenues from the fuel tax continue to diminish over time. We're at a lucky spot right now where the diminishment is kind of a curve, and it's just starting to inflect downwards. At some point, it's going to take a deep dive and inflect a flat line at some point. But there needs to be a new system in place. So that's my personal perspective based on the work I've done. And I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, Mark, thank you. I've been following the 3 programs that they've been running. The question I have from that is they're very close to making their final recommendation. And again, it's about how the pie is going to be split up. There's a tremendous cost to collect the money, every agency wants a part of it. Ultimately, Caltrans is being positioned in a role that I think might concern local governments. The question I really have is there anybody this year in the legislators that are proposing legislations towards making any of those programs a reality that you know of?
In my experience, very closely aligned with all this up until December, there was nobody
Good.
willing to take legislation moving forward. And part of that had to do with, well, maybe they might consider it, but then we got into the big affordability question as a result of some of the changes in the way the nation and the state is being run, as well as some of the tragedies in Southern California that may affect transportation financing. So I think there is no threat. Shouldn't say it that way. I think there is no interest in moving legislation, even after the commission and its TAC provides good, strong feedback on how this would work when they conclude their pilot program. So I think the pilot program is going to be first in line, and I don't think anybody in this legislature is ready this year to take that on.
Great. Thank you for that, Mark, and I appreciate your input.
Any other questions? Mark, I just have one. If there is funds needed for the LA fire areas, is that going to come out of the pool that exists now, or do you think it's going to be additive?
I can't see how it could. There is a Proposition 20 from 2010 that locked in redevelopment, which didn't really work, but because it took the money away. But it also locked in a number of other major programs, including transportation programs. And it requires any change to the distribution of gas tax funds to local streets and roads or county streets and roads to go through a multi-year hearing process before the bill can even be moved. So they're going to have to find the money from other sources. It could be a temporary cap and trade thing, I'm not sure. But in terms of the fuel tax and the need for fuel taxes to continue to be available to local streets and roads, either the county or city level, I don't think some of these, whatever the need will eventually be calculated, and that will come from those sources.
Okay, thank you. Lindy?
Thank you. I also wanted to thank Mr. Watts for helping set up staff-to-staff meetings this week with Senator Grayson's office and Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan's office. I met with their transportation staff and just gave them a bit of information about CCTA and went over some of our major priorities, as well as a little bit of an introduction to our workforce interest. So it was great to meet with them. I also met with Assemblymember Davies' office just to kind of give them an introduction. She is the vice chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee this year. So it's a pleasure to sort of do those staff-to-staff meetings, and I appreciate Mr. Watts helping to set those up. And now I'm going to turn it over to our federal update. I'm excited to introduce Brooke Kintz. She has been working with Ty Ginsburg and Associates for the last decade and previously worked in government relations in the automotive sector, managing North American policy for the last about 10 years. She's excited to be helping us here at CCTA and to be working with Ty Ginsburg and Associates. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Lindy. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Chair and members. I'm also joined here by my colleague, Jason Tai. I don't know if his video is on, but we're here to answer any questions after we give a pretty high-level overview of what's going on in D.C., because there's a lot going on in D.C. right now. It's kind of an understatement, right? I think everyone has seen that the president has signed over 45 executive orders since entering into office. Important to this group has been the executive order related to infrastructure funding and the direction that OMB has to look through each funding stream with relevant agencies. There also was an executive order that received a lot of attention related to pausing all federal assistance and funding. A federal judge had ordered an injunction on that EO on February 3rd, and that was just extended this past Monday. The Senate's been tied down the last few weeks working through President Trump's cabinet with confirmation hearings. I think thus far they've confirmed about 10 cabinet secretaries. 9 are still awaiting to be confirmed, and I believe another 3 are waiting for their confirmation hearings. This is a rate, though, that matches Obama in '09 for confirmation turnarounds. So compared to the last two presidential terms, this is about twice as fast. I think, as everyone's aware, Sean Duffy was confirmed as DOT secretary just last week. And on that same day, a very unfortunate and very tragic event happened near Reagan Airport. So that's been front of mind for him and certainly the department, Senate Commerce Committee, and the administration. Congress has a lot of work in front of them. Once the president's cabinet is confirmed, the House is going to be sitting at a razor thin margin of 217 to 215 with a Republican majority. And the Senate is about 53 to 47. So this is going to be the first time in over half a century the House has been or has had a smaller majority than the Senate. And Congress is staring down a not so easy task of a large budget reconciliation bill. House leadership on the Republican side is focusing on four key elements for that bill. It's going to be tax cuts, border funding, permitting reform, and cuts to the federal government. But timing's hard to say on budget reconciliation. There's been reports that it could be later this spring. It can push further into the year. We're just unsure, and we're keeping our ear to the ground and continuing to work with Congress on what that timing is. But on top of that, there's also the debt ceiling, and they need to pass FY25 approps. There's a March 14th deadline, along with figuring out FY26 approps. So when it comes to passing anything in Congress this year, it's going to be about the math. As you know, can you make the numbers work to pass a bill? So there's a lot going on here in DC. We're happy to, dive a little bit deeper with any questions that you may have. Like I said, Jason's also on the line. And Jason, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that update.
Thanks, Brooke. Chair, members of the committee, always great to have a chance to visit with you, even virtually. Always prefer in person. The only thing I would add is, based on Lindy's excellent introduction of Brooke, is that we are very happy and lucky to have Brooke Kintz join our team, our little pea shooter organization. She is very, very modest, but she is arguably one of the nation's preeminent experts on autonomous vehicle policies. And given the synergies and your leadership, CCTA's leadership with Momentum Station and all things autonomous vehicles, I did want to add that in there as a key component of her amazing skill sets. So with that, I have nothing to add to Brooke's excellent comments, and we are open and available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and welcome, Brooke. We're excited to have you as part of the team. Any questions?
Thank you.
No?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Brooke, nice to meet you as well. You mentioned, and we've been obviously fighting here for the past 3 months to get our mega grant paperwork done, and had some issues on the local DOT folks here. How do you think that type of a grant plays? Is that also under this review system, whatever that system is?
The answer is, well, the answer depends on which side is doing the answering. I would say on the administration side, there's a push-pull right now, as you've seen, in terms of this administration exerting their authority over over appropriations and spending. And Congress, in turn, or at least some members of Congress, are saying the power of the purse is with us. So this is kind of the growing pains that any administration faces, a push and pull. I would say, going to your point, that there have been some challenges. I would say that CCTA and their team, their consultants, did a phenomenal job in submitting all of the materials that US DOT asked of them. Now, that was submitted, I believe, in December. There have been a number of delays with US DOT, but I think we have a strategy and a plan under Tim and Lindy to find ways to move the needle with respect to US DOT. But I would add this final point, and that is, it is going to be a continuing effort. There is a pause. The administration feels like they have a right to have a pause, and the Congress and the judiciary branch have a different opinion. But we will continue to push what we need to push to get this thing through.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Brooke.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership.
Tim?
Just maybe a follow-up on that. I just want to thank the Ty Ginsburg team as well as Director Hu in terms of getting the mega grant to the point where we needed to get it to before January 20th. So we got the grant agreement on basically, it was stuck in the California division for probably 3 or 4 weeks, and we moved it forward into headquarters, and it got to headquarters desk basically on January 13th, and then we did like a full court press to try to get this thing signed before January 20th, and unfortunately, we weren't able to achieve that. And so I think what we are hearing is optimistic, is that, you know, the mega program, I don't think is really gonna be probably too affected. I think it's not an if, it's a matter of when this grant agreement is going to get assigned. So I think I'd be more concerned about programs like NEVI and those types of programs where we're really focused on green infrastructure and green energy and those types of things. But I think the mega program, I think, is gonna be somewhat bipartisan, and I think we'll hopefully get this thing signed and move forward on the grant agreement for the mega. So
Great, thank you. Any additional, oh, Jason, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and I apologize I didn't say that more specifically, and I think goes to the point why Tim is the CEO, is that CCTA, out of all the mega grant recipients, this last go around, was one of the first, if not the first, to get the application into USDOT. There are a number of other recipients that were awarded it that have not yet even submitted their application. So I do want to point out that CCTA, the team, is ahead of the pack in many different ways. And finally, I would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to Congressman DeSaulnier, whom we met with when we were in DC, who has been a huge advocate after the grant has been awarded. So we have fantastic representation, and we do want to give kudos to the congressman. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jason. Anything else? Okay, we'll go to public comment. Is there any public? No here. Any public comment online or written?
We have not received any written or a remote public comment. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We don't really need a motion for this, do we? No. It's on my script as needing a motion. That's okay. I knew to skip that. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is an action item presented by Jack Hall to discuss automated driving system project agreements. Jack, oh, there you are. He's hiding behind the screens.
I guess I'm doing that right. So good morning, Chair Nowak and committee members. My name is Jack Hall. I'm the Intelligent Transportation System and Connected Autonomous Vehicle Program Manager. This morning, we are seeking approval of 4 contract amendments for our automated driving system project and seeking approval of the use of Fund Exchange Reserve or FundFERS for these extensions. As part of our ADS grant application to the U.S. Department of Transportation, we scheduled 1 year of data collection for the project. Because of COVID and a mandatory statewide stay-at-home order that was issued on March 19th, 2020, almost 5 years ago today, the project was delayed and many of our proposed vehicle partners dropped out of the project. Since then, we have procured new partners and have started all of our sub-projects. Our partners at FTA understand the difficulties of getting autonomous vehicle projects on the road, and they experienced COVID delays themselves. Because of these conditions, FTA has approved the extension of our ADS agreement to June 30, 2026. 3 of the amendments today, Cal Berkeley Path, Telegra, and HEEX, involve collecting and analyzing data received from operations and are needed until agreement closeout and issuing of our final report. The 4th amendment is for May Mobility, the vehicle provider for our Martinez County Hospital project, and provides for service and providing data through December of 2025. There is no more grant funding available for the project, and we are asking to fund these contract amendments with the use of Fund Exchange Reserve, or FER funds. Attachment N to the staff report shows our current Fund Exchange Reserve commitments. With approval of the attached FER resolution that we're looking at today, we will have committed approximately $12.9 million in FER funds for all projects listed, and we'll have approximately $1.5 million remaining. With that, we are requesting approval of Board Resolution 2506P for the use of $1,579,257 of FER funds. Those FER funds would then be broken down into Amendment 1 to contract 568 with Cal Berkeley Path for $191,000. Amendment 1 to contract 574 with Telegra at $480,000. Amendment 2 with Heeks Technology Corporation for $66,000. Those are for data collection and analysis. And then Amendment 3 with May Mobility for extending service in Martinez through December 31st, 2025 at $842,257. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Jack. I just had a question to start off, and Tim and I talked a little bit about this, but I think it's a comfort level on the low amount of available FER funds, and maybe you can address that for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I can address and then have Jack and Hisham can jump in. But basically, there, as everyone knows, this is, and also for Commissioner Bernal and Commissioner G, in terms of the FER and what the FER is. I think, well, Commissioner Xavier, I think I'll even go over a review with you as well. So the Fund Exchange Reserve was something that we created about 3 years ago. And what it is, it's a mechanism that we've been able to take basically state funds, like STIP funds, like Transportation Improvement Program funds, and basically be able to essentially exchange STIP funds for local funds. And that is actually one of the ways that we actually put the Iron Horse Trail pedestrian overcrossing under construction. And so what we were able to do was to take STIP, basically give STIP funds to the city of San Ramon, and then over time, they're going to be basically essentially depositing funds in the Fund Exchange Reserve for that amount. And so we have successfully have done that in multiple cities, multiple locations. And basically, as far as the total FER amount, I think it's like how much is the total FER? 14. Yeah, the 14 million? Okay, so 14.3 million. And so those were all a bunch of exchange between like certain cities and so forth. And then now what we've done is we've been using this Fund Exchange Reserve, and this was the purpose of it, was to be able to have a source of funds to be able to match, grant funds because of the lack of limited Measure J funds to be able to match, grant funds. And so what we've done with this pot of money is, as we've been dealing with essentially changes in contracts, or particularly on grants. So for example, we have two key innovative grants right now. We have what's called the ATC MTD grant, and then we also have this automated driving system grant. And so we've been using the Fund Exchange Reserve as basically as a contingency plan for funding as scope changes have happened throughout the entire project. And so as Mr. Hall just basically presented, is we have a scope change for the ADS project. We've made a commitment to FTA to basically have 1 year of basically clean operations. We've deployed the Rossmore project basically in August, the May Mobility in September. It took us some time to kind of work out the kinks. And so now we're committing to FTA from January to the end of the year, the 1 year of clean data, and consistent operations for both those projects. So in order to do that, we're having to extend, these agreements with May Mobility, and I am anticipating there'll be another amendment with BEEP to be able to address that extension as well, which will also have to come out of the Fund Exchange Reserve. So right now in the Fund Exchange Reserve, there's roughly about $3 million left in the Fund Exchange Reserve, so this will be roughly $1.5 million of that, and then we're anticipating that the additional $1.5 million, we're essentially going to have to basically hopefully be able to cover any additional scope changes on both the ADS project to really see it come to completion. And the reason why that's important is we have to fulfill our commitments on this grant, on the ADS grant. And we've made commitments to FTA, we've made commitments to, and this is all part of the grant agreement that we originally wrote back in 2019. And so, and as you all know, dealing with autonomous vehicles and partners and technology, there's always unknowns, there's always uncertainties, and that's what we're dealing with on these projects. And so luckily, we do have this Fund Exchange Reserve to be able to address those changes as we're moving forward. If we didn't, we'd be in a whole different situation. So, but we are, as staff is concerned, I know Hisham and I are also looking for additional opportunities to continue to grow the Fund Exchange Reserve program throughout the county. And so, but we are confident that, that we have sufficient funds to be able, in the FER, to be able to cover this amendment and any future amendments for the automated driving system program.
So how much of the FER exchange that's already been allocated is coming back to us through local funds or Gomentum repaying stuff? I know those are two areas where monies are going to come back in. How much of that?
I'll let Hisham cover the local piece, because I think that's a little bit more complicated, but the Gomentum piece is $1 million.
Yeah.
So just so you all
I mean,
know,
yeah, I'm just
just so you all
doing
know,
it for
we basically essentially loaned $1 million to Next Generation Mobility to get Gomentum Station kind of transitioned and kind of started up last year. And so we're expecting them to pay that back over, I think it's a 4-year amortization schedule, right? I think it's, Brian, is it 4 years for the amortization for Gomentum Station? I think they're supposed to pay us back by fiscal year 31, yeah. So we did an amortization schedule with NextGen on terms of paying that back. And then but we're anticipating them to pay that back earlier than scheduled. So they've already been making deposits, back to CCTA. So, and then in terms of the city part of it, I'll let Hisham cover that. I think it's a little more complicated. I don't have the numbers on that.
Yeah, I mean, the payments from the city it's basically a loan of state money that they're paying back with local money, local Measure J money, the return to source money. That's gonna take multiple years. By the time we get all the payments, I'm anticipating, based on the agreements, the last payment will come in 2030.
Okay.
So in terms of cash flow, we are negative in the next couple of years. We're bridging that with Measure J, but we are expecting, as we get those payments, we'll turn positive in the future.
Thanks. I just thought it would be good to
It's good.
go over
Yeah, no,
that
it's
process.
a good question. I think it's important for everyone here to be a good refresher on the whole program
It's the
and how we
number
create
thing in
it.
me.
Yeah, how often do you give updates on this contract or these contracts?
So typically whenever there's an amendment, or if there's a major, maybe event or milestone in the project. So let's say we reach a certain milestone in the project schedule, we'll give an update to the board. Or if we have an amendment, to a contract or agreement. I mean, the automated driving system grant, I can't tell you how many agreements there are. There's probably over 8 to 10 agreements that's making that project happen. So whenever there's an amendment, we try to provide an update, and then, like I said, reaching certain milestones.
I guess my point is that maybe in 6 months, if we have an update, so it's not a year from now and it's, hey, we have another $1.5 million or $2 million worth of.
On the projects or on the FER?
I think on the automated driving system project?
Or just for example, the automated driving project, so.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm anticipating probably, like I said, I think there's another future amendment coming with BEEP, and we'll probably be giving another update about the project, and so, yeah.
Okay.
But happy to provide more updates,
Sure.
absolutely.
And I had another question
Yep.
just on the contracts. So, sorry, I'm new, so I'm just going to ask, and I didn't get a chance to ask questions of staff, but on the in-kind contributions, I saw a couple, UC Berkeley is one of them, they have in-kind. What types of things are in-kind contributions that are being provided?
Right, so it's still on. So in kind, for all, on part of this grant that we applied for, and it was part of the reason why we probably got the grant, one of the main reasons is because we had Gomentum Station that gives us an ability to test. So there's been projects in the past where people make a proposal. I just know one for sure in New York City, they ended up having to go to a dog track to practice because they couldn't get the stuff installed. So when we apply, we have a Gomentum Station to test equipment and vehicles out at that site in a secure environment, and then we can roll it out onto the public streets. So that's a it's a big plus for us on applications. And then the in-kind also, that gives us a plus. So we got $7.5 million on this grant, but our application has a number close to 29 million. And so the in-kind would be for other staff, like at UC Berkeley, that they're, like a lot of times they'll have there's one professor, Ching Yao, others, stuff that we're not going to actually reimburse for, but they're actually doing work. we count that as in-kind. And then we submit that to the FTA, and then they notify it. Is that clarif-
Maybe I can just add, I mean, one of the things I think that we're known for and we're really good at is these public-private partnerships, you know, and really working with the private sector and the public sector on this. And so when we start crafting these projects, the entire automated driving system program is roughly about $30 million total. And I think out of Measure J, I think there's probably, about $800,000 on the entire financial plan. So a lot of this was basically $8 million from automated driving system, FTA funds. And then we also have local partnership program fund, which is state funding that we have for its formula funding that we have discretion to apply to the project. And then most of the other funds are basically all in kind. And so so the in kind is basically, you know, software development on their part. It also could be the staff time. It could also be cash contributions, but that's typically not the case. And so, but most of it is typically, you know, work that they're doing that they need to be doing in order to advance their goals as an entity. And then so that way there's this public-private partnership. You know, we're helping them, they're helping us. And that's typically how we handle like the in-kind.
Do they account for that? Do they give an accounting of the in-kind?
Yeah, we do actually, yeah. So in the financial plan, we actually, in the letters of commitments, when we actually do the grant, when we submit the grant, we do a letter of commitment that specifically requires them to have specific in-kind contributions. And then we also have in there like allocation of funds that we'd be giving to them, if that's the case, depending on the partner. And so we have that all agreed on up front, and then that's all put into the overall financial plan. And then usually with these grants, with FTA and federal highways, there's essentially like a financial plan that has to be submitted to the agency that has all this detailed out in terms of the partner, fiscal year, all a complete understanding of where all the money's going, and during the entire length of the grant. Yeah.
Any additional questions? Okay, then is there any public comment? Is any written or?
We have not
remote?
received any written or remote public comment. Thank you.
I'm looking for a motion.
I would move item B as presented. Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Arnrich,
Aye.
Commissioner Burnell,
Aye.
Commissioner G,
Aye.
Commissioner Xavier,
Aye.
Acting Chair Noack.
Yes?
Motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you, Jack. The next item is an action item presented by Brian Kelleher to discuss the CalPERS unfunded liability.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Brian Kelleher. I'm the CFO for Contra Costa Transportation Agency. This morning, I'm here in front of you to take this opportunity to ask for your approval to pay off a lump sum payment to CalPERS to pay off our unfunded actuarial accrued liability. Let's click on this. So, What CalPERS does is they take all of our funds and then they put it in a pool, and then they try and forecast out the future and try and figure out when is it that the retirees are going to need this money, and how much money do they need to earn at CalPERS to pay off the employees that are in the system. And so there's a discount rate that comes into that. And so the discount rate is a long-term interest rate to fund future pension benefits. It's one of the key components of asset liability management. And there's a cycle in that. They do that about every 4 years. And we're starting that cycle that starts in 2025, and they'll have it finished at the end of the year in November. And I have a slide on that and a couple slides that'll kind of show you the process on that. And so the discount rate, again, has historically in 2004, it was 7.75%. And then again, in 2016, they reduced it from 7.5% to 7%. And then again, in 2021, they reduced it from 7% to 6.8%. But what does all of that mean? That means that when we look at the future projections of interest earnings and assets and different things like that, is they need to earn, again, enough money to pay for all the retirees. And so I don't want to dig too far into this because maybe your financial managers, maybe your finance directors kind of go through this with you, so you probably have a general idea of what's happening. But the benefits of reducing the discount rate, it strengthens the long-term stability of the fund. The biggest thing for us is it allows us to add additional contributions from participating agencies, which is us, that help offset the pay of the pensions. And so all of us have your financial advisors, some of you have treasury departments, and you take those investments and you stick it out there and you try and earn as much interest as possible. One of the things that we do, we have LAIF, we have our private investors that we buy. We're really conservative, and so it's treasuries, and so we're about 4%. And so your unfunded liability for some of the cities that have police or fire or contract with the fire departments to provide things, they have to pay that, and that's a long-term expense, and so that's a lot of money compared to CCTA at 25 employees. And so when you're looking at the discount rate, you can see the historical interest earnings at CalPERS. And so I have another slide that follows this one that kind of shows as they're exceeding the discount rate, which is right at that blue line in the middle. You can see in 2004 was 7.75%. And you see some really negative years. 2009, obviously we know what happened in 2009. Then we had the pandemic in 2020. And then as we came out of the pandemic, we had 21.3% return. If you look at CCTA's investments, I have a slide on that that's coming up, it's roughly 4%. So if you had your money with CalPERS, who is a little more aggressive with their investments, you have a great opportunity to earn a lot more money, which goes to reduce your unfunded liabilities for your pensions. Obviously, if you had it and put the money in 2008 and you lost 23%, that probably wasn't a good investment. But over time, with CalPERS, it's in your favor to make these deposits. And so the funding history. So when I joined CCTA, I looked at the unfunded accrued liability, and I approached my boss at the time, and I says, we need to make a deposit. We need to start going down this. And so in 2015, we made a deposit of $2.2 million. And again, as you look down the chart, you can see our unfunded liability in 2014. This is a 10-year schedule here. You can see that once we made that payment in 2015, it went from 82% to 97%. And we kind of sat there, and we had some bad years on interest earnings in there on the CalPERS. If you look to the right, you can see CalPERS investment returns and LAIF investment returns. That's where kind of a bulk of our money sits. And so you can see the difference of the delta. In 2014, if we had that money sitting with CalPERS, we would have, 18% more. In the following year, 2%. As you go through this, you can kind of see when we have low interest rates and low interest rates on our treasuries and in our LAIF investments, there's higher opportunity to put more of your money to work. And so as we went through 2022, we had a 6.1% return on CalPERS, and in 2023, it was 5.8%, which is below the discount rate. So all of your needs to be earning 6.8% now. And if you're not, you're paying interest on your unfunded liability. And so, as you know, CalPERS is always 1 year behind on their valuations. And so what they earned in 2024 was about 9.4%. And so when I started working with CalPERS in December, and we got the final information from them in January, they came back and they said, we're going to apply the 9.4% plus the payments you made in July of this year, and your projected payoff should be about $2.4 million. And so we're seeking approval for that piece there. The Classic, which is the bulk of employees that have retired from CCTA that are here at CCTA, and then we have a PEPRA unfunded liability, which is $72,000. And so part of CalPERS process is the asset liability management. And so they take a look at this every 4 years, and they go through a very in-depth process of trying to figure out what changes do they need to make to help the agencies, as well as change their investments to ensure that we're earning 6.8%. I'm not going to go through all the steps, but in January, February, they're starting the process of risk analysis, and then in November, they will do a final approval, and all of those approvals and changes that they make will take effect on July 1st, 2026. And so one of the things you want to do is you look at your amortization schedule, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's your car payment, and you say, how much interest am I paying? And so when I was looking at this, and you're thinking about 2.4 million is a lot of money to put out, but when you think about the potential interest earnings you have, or the interest you're going to pay over the long term, there's a 20-year amortization schedule, which is about I should probably put my glasses on. Is probably about 2.3 million over the next 20 years, because you have that option, and your cities probably do this, is you put it aside and you make the payments every year, but you guys are going to collect revenue for the future. CCTA is a sunset of 2034, so you need the proactive, you need to start making sure that you take care of all of your debts that, as you have them today. And if you look at a 15-year model, that's about 1.7 million. So 1.7 million plus, if you're to think of the PEPRA, which I didn't do a slide for that one because it's so small, it would be $144,000 or $52,000 in accumulated interest. Roughly together, that's about $1.7 million of interest you would pay in the future. But if you use that money now compared to the 2.4, it's really not really going to cost you that much money. So the proposed lump sum payment, again, would be $2.4 million. You're going to save $1.6 million on a 15-year amortization schedule. And so our proposed source of funds is our Measure C that we've been holding on to for a long period of time. We've gained enough interest. We had a reserve fund, and we've used that's what funded the previous ones, is our reserve fund and Measure C to take care of the prior salaries and benefits and everything like that. We had some money sitting in there, and we used it for that. And so when we closed out Measure C during this fiscal year, we worked extensively with Hisham to make sure that of the $5 million we had left in Measure C, we put $2.6 million set aside for one of our projects. I think there was another $82,000 for two other really small projects that were left in there, and then there was interest earnings. And so using that interest earnings, we're going to take about $2.4 million of that, and we're going to pay down these payments on February 20th. So with that, staff recommends approving or representing the resolution at the board and seeking approval.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Any questions? A lot of numbers? My thing. I already asked my questions of Brian. Couple slides as a result.
Yeah, just a quick question. So obviously this is a cash flow question, right? Because we're going to take $2.6 million and use it now, as opposed to spreading it over 15 years at 150 or 60,000 a year. So are the Measure C funds designated only for specific purposes, or can they be used more widely? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, so without getting too far deep into it, there's a tax expenditure plan that the voters approve, and we put all this money dedicated to all these projects, all of the different regions in Contra Costa, and those set-aside funds are to go to those individual projects. And so through the whole process of that 25-year period of Measure C, there was funds earmarked to do all of the projects within the individual cities in the county. And so there was reserve funds that had been earning interest, and with that interest, stronger interest earnings that we've been seeing in the last few years, that money is available for us to use for any of our projects or administration as we see fit.
Okay. And so the 2.6 million, that we expect that's going to grow over time again, correct? We'll pay it off now, and then into the future, it's going to continue to accumulate similar to what's been done since it was paid off the last time.
Yes, I mean, likely that's what's happened historically, but as we all know, we want CalPERS to earn that 6.8% because it benefits your city, it benefits us, and we don't want that to grow. But as life expectancy grows longer, people receive payments longer, and so they're always looking at that and changing that sort of thing. So I could see it growing again. We always keep a reserve, and that's one of the things that, you know, I really specialize in here, is making sure that we have earmarked funds for these type of emergencies, and we we're set up in a way that we plan for these things, and when we have the opportunity, we try and take advantage of it. Because if we didn't take advantage of it, that earlier thing in 2015 might have been $5, $6, $7, $8 million, you know, which is really small compared to a large city and different things that they face. So if we stay ahead of the curve and start making little deposits as we go along, it won't be a large mistake that we missed out on interest earnings over all those years. That's how we believe.
I think the other important, oh, sorry, I was going to say the other important thing is that Measure J runs out in 2034, and so depending on, you know, you don't want this liability sitting out there at the end of the Measure J timeframe. So prepaying is a little different decision process for CCTA than it is for cities and stuff like that. So I think that's an important piece. And then I had mentioned to Brian on the phone, this asset liability reevaluation of their assumptions that's going to take place. That never bodes well typically for anybody, right? But at least CCTA is already ahead of the game, and by having prepaid this, if there is a negative impact, it will be lessened than if they hadn't. So that's an important piece as well. Tim?
Well, I was going to mention the 2034 piece, and then the other piece I was going to mention, and maybe Brian can maybe elaborate on this because it was his leadership that got all this done. But little things like this helps us. We actually just received AAA credit rating as an agency, you know, and so on both S&P and Fitch, which was an upgrade. And so I think, but it's things like this that helps us get that AAA credit rating, which then helps us in the long run in terms of getting those like really good proposals on our bonds. And so maybe Brian, you can just share a little bit of the good news there. I know it's not part of the item, but I think it's fair to kind of talk about it.
It's relevant.
Yeah, so yesterday morning at about 8:15, we closed. And so when you do a refinance, normally you hire an underwriter, a big bank, and come in and they help your financial advisor team that you hire, and they come in and they work with B of A or Wells Fargo or another Citibank or another large organization like that. And they go out, they find the bidders, they come in. And so what we did is, knowing that it was going to be a 9-year refinance, interest rates are doing pretty well on refinances for government, and there's a strong appetite nationwide for California's strong credit. And so it was $55 million. And so yesterday at 8:15, we had 17 bidders. We did a competitive bidding. So it's kind of like the reverse of an eBay auction where the highest price wins. It was the lowest price wins. And so Bank of America came in at the lowest out of 17 big banks and big investment teams. And we were able to save on our current bond. We refinanced at approximately $800,000 a year savings over the next 9 years. And so that again is being a very strong organization, being ahead of the curve. There's calls on bonds. There's times when you can't, and just trying to be taking advantage whenever there's money, but good money on the table, not just trying to save 1 million, 2 million, but a large amount of money, which also adds for the projects division to allow them to do extra work for the cities and do different things as we move forward. And so it's a good news story. And
I was going to say, if I could add, it's because of our coverage. We're an agency of choice from the financial markets, highest credit rating around. We saved $7 million, and it is because of all of this. Our coverage is so high against any of our liabilities, which no city could ever match. Just can't. And secondly, our financial practices are here at a very high level because we can, and it's a value proposition. I know I'm the one who argued years ago that this agency should not act like cities or counties, should be fully funded because it works both ways. Brian presented it. Cities will argue till they turn blue about why they shouldn't do it. Do the math. You underfund it, you are borrowing the most expensive amount of money on the planet. You know, getting bonds and stuff, pension obligation bonds help that and mitigate it because you're arbitraging a little bit. But we made a policy decision that we will fully fund. And that's why we are this good of an agency. This is why we are financially rated so high, and we are a debt issuing organization, unlike most cities aren't now. So it makes us unique. And again, the 2034, yes, we're going out in 2028 to ask our voters to extend us, but we have to be financially prudent to say we may only go to 2034. When this agency ends, we're going to walk away, and whoever's still here then will know that we are fully funded in every category that we can. And that's pretty cool. And putting the money in, you're making money on it. And we cannot make, is the point, Brian, we're going to make anywhere from 2 to 4% depending upon the market. But because of those, on the average, that's why it works. And because PEPRA and all of that, so all of those legacy folks from the 2000 era, when they got benefits that they never paid for and public agencies never put the money in before, they got it overnight, that wave is starting to finally go away. And so that's why the returns in the fund and everything, because the demand is less. So we're extraordinary, and I think that we should all feel really good. It's a good model.
Yeah, and Brian, congratulations on that refinance. That's great news.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Any other? Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Brian, thank you so much. Is there any public comment? Written, remote, local?
We do not have any written or remote public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Arnrich,
Aye.
Commissioner Bernal,
Aye.
Commissioner G,
Aye.
Commissioner Xavier,
Aye.
Acting Chair Noack.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great. Next item is correspondence and communications. We didn't have, of course, any, so on the packet. We're now moving to commissioner and staff comments. First, welcome to our, I guess, Darlene's been here as an alternate and Rita's been here as an alternate. Ron, this is your first one, so welcome to you. Any comments from any of the commissioners? No?
I'd just like to say it's great to be here in a different capacity than I've been in the past and working again with the staff. So yeah, I'm super excited about hopefully adding some value to this board and this group. So thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Staff comments?
Rita had a comment.
Oh, Rita, sorry, I
was just
didn't see
gonna
your
say-
light on, I'm sorry.
Well, I just turned it on.
Okay.
I was going to say, I'm happy to be here too. Because I have attended CCTA meetings way back, long ago, 10 years ago, whatever. So it feels
Glad to be
good to
back.
be here.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, and a permanent seat now. Welcome. Staff comments?
Yeah, so I was going to talk about the AAA credit rating, so we got that one off the books. The other one is, so something that we're really proud of here at CCTA is our construction program. You know, you may remember when the previous executive, Randy Wazaki, was here, you know, the board collectively decided that it's really important that CCTA starts AAAing our own projects. And by doing that, we've been able to, you know, finish and complete projects under budget, ahead of schedule, like the South Express lanes, we actually finished that a year ahead of schedule. And all of that work has led to an award-winning construction program. And that all is because of really one person, as well as the collective work, getting those projects ready to go by the team. But Ivan Ramirez is our director of construction, and he is going to be retiring from CCTA. And so his last day is February 21st. And so, although his last physical day in the office will actually be tomorrow. And so, so I'm really proud of the work that Ivan has done in working with you over the last 7 years here at CCTA. So, just want to say any few words.
I just want to, first and foremost, thank Brian. Very timely presentation today.
Yeah, so
And
we,
thank
so we
you.
can retire, right?
And then, thank you.
Self-serving.
My dad's 86, my mom's 80, so I'm 56, so you prolong that, how much PERS is gonna support me over the next few years. But no, I do want to say thank you to the board, current members, prior members. I think it's a big step as to go ahead and administer your own projects on the state highway system, multi-million-dollar projects, totally exposed to the public, and all the risks that come with having one. And it really requires the support of this board to be able to, for somebody like me to make the decisions that need to be made to move the program forward, or the projects forward. It can be, construction is a very risky business. We've been lucky, and we also have managed the risks very well. I think both of them are true. But it does require the board to support staff with some of the things that we have to deal on a daily basis. And I appreciate all the support you've given me, Tim, Randy in the past, because without that support, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we've done. And I think that we have done some really, really amazing things here at the authority. And thank you very much. I really appreciated everything all the opportunities and all the support that this agency has given me. So thank you.
All right, come on, thank you.
Well, I know we thank you and we will miss you a lot. You've always done a great job presenting all your projects here, and I wish you the best in retirement. This is my retirement, so be careful with what you do. But thank you so much for all your work. Anybody else want to comment? Newell?
I have to say, this guy I've just loved since I've been here, having a construction background, and whoever fills those shoes needs the trustworthiness that you have given us, the knowledge, the integrity, and the absolute honesty about where we stand on things, which has given us the confidence in Ivan and your ability and the agency's ability to do these things. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done for us.
Ron? Oop.
Yeah, Ivan, I just want to say thank you. I've worked with you on a different side, and construction's super hard, as you know, and I don't think people can appreciate how many decisions and how much you have to do to negotiate to make sure that projects do stay on schedule, do stay on budget. So thank you very much for what you've brought, and those are some big shoes to fill behind you. So thank you.
Any additional comments, Tim?
No, that's it. Any other staff comments? All right,
No?
thank you.
All right. That concludes our meeting. The meeting is adjourned at 9:49.
All right.
Thank you.